Good morning, everyone. This is the general membership meeting for October. And Lyndon and I were just talking about, you know, the weekly groups and the general groups and all. And I picked a reading that has to do with what we're studying in the weekly group. So this is so applicable. Um, we've been talking about catching ourselves lying and what false conscience is, and or in some places in the fourth way, it's called acquired conscience. Um, it's not our real conscience, and conscience means a specific thing in the fourth way. It's not like I have a guilty conscience. So I'm going to be reading from something that I found, and we'll begin with a meditation that is an exercise. It's really called the atmosphere exercise, and uh, there are different sources on how this goes, but it is a preparation for the collected state, actually. So it was something that I think probably Mr. Gurdjieff threw out as an exercise to prepare people to maintain a kind of concentration of mind and in relation to an atmosphere. And you may have also um, done the light grid meditation where we bring in the light and bring it into our body, and it sometimes exudes about 1.5 meters out. um, that has to do with our atmosphere. So let's go ahead and start with the atmosphere exercise. So find a comfortable place to sit and come along with us. The first thing that we need to do in this exercise is to focus all of our awareness, the body, the mind, and even the feelings, on relaxation. For you, this may start at the top of your head, letting a wave of relaxation come over you. Let this happen slowly without me walking you through it. For some, it may be once you've gone through the body to then go to the feeling. What is relaxation of feeling? And of course, the mind. So first, let this wave of relaxation start at the top of your head and melt like butter. Let tension drain. Move through your body rather slowly. Continue to let this relaxation come over you. Perhaps you are not fully finished with letting it drain through your body. And I'm not speaking as much on purpose so that you can make the effort with your own awareness and concentration. Continue to let the body drain of tension. Now, if you are complete with this relaxation of body, also bring your awareness to feeling. You may be filled with anxiety or tension of feeling, reaction. Invite that to release. And with this, you may notice that the mind will also begin to relax and release from associations and thinking about the past or the future. One cannot start the atmosphere exercise without this true relaxation of the centers, the relaxation of especially the mind. Feel your body relaxed, feeling relaxed, and your mind, let it stay with its awareness right here and now. You can let the body help you do that. When you feel like the mind is becoming relaxed as well, that's when it's time to start the atmosphere exercise. Just like you would think of the earth with an atmosphere around it, we too have an atmosphere. And it gets pushed and distorted in waves of thought. For example, if you think of someone far away, your atmosphere is disturbed. Part of you is far away. And so the aim is to keep the atmosphere intact. Awareness is with a relaxed body and mind, maintaining this atmosphere around your body intact. So make this effort now to not let your thoughts go far away to other people and things, to the past or the future, but maintaining itself within your own atmosphere. As if it were an energetic field around you, a cloud of energy, of which your mind is a part. It's a part of this atmosphere. You may find that the mind darts about. Keep bringing it back into the atmosphere, making it whole unto yourself. And once you feel that you have maintained yourself within this atmosphere of yourself, draw it into you, towards you. as if it had a strengthening force. A collected atmosphere. This gives you an idea of the sense of atmosphere. The atmosphere exercise was something done as a preparation for the collected state. So see if you can stay in this collected atmosphere of your own. As I read about false conscience, and it's something we've been working on in the weekly groups, we've had the exercise of catching ourselves lying. It's a hard thing to do when we do it so much. And so we've come to discover many things about right and wrong, and so the subjective quality that that can have. So I'm going to read about this, and then maybe people can make a few comments or ask questions, or begin the work of catching yourself lying. Then you can get a clue about false conscience. False conscience breeds doing the right thing for the wrong reason. It is a term that describes seeing right and wrong from a conditioned perspective. For example, we often vow to go on a diet after a binge, buried in guilt. This vow is not really a choice, but a reaction to the immense guilt and self-loathing we are experiencing. The decision is a result of false conscience, which simply wants to do the right thing to rectify the wrong thing. We develop ideas about ourselves based on survival tactics that kept us accepted and loved. In our past, when we saw that we were not accepted for who we were, criticized for being too loud, too dramatic, too messy, too shy, we created personalities that would get us the acceptance we craved. We created hard shells of protection when we felt abandoned. Those tactics formed false personality. False personality fuels false conscience. In this context, we create an extremely subjective world of right and wrong. We may be identified with our role as a good person and find ourselves constantly pleasing others to fulfill that self-image. We end up resenting others for what they have asked of us instead of creating self-respecting boundaries and holding ourselves responsible for our own actions. It's hard for a pleaser to say no because they operate from false conscience. Their actions are not a result of conscious choice, but conditioned response. If guilt or shame is the motivator in us, we learn to quell those states through false conscience. An abuser will often go overboard with gifts, apologies, and affection to alleviate their shame. there lacks a genuine act of love in these kind gestures. True conscience requires an awareness of self that enables choice. If we look closely at our actions, we will see that we are constantly trying to rectify and balance the workings of the ego's evaluation of good and bad. It all comes down to shoulds and should nots based on false sense of right and wrong. It's important to evaluate in all manner of speaking why we do what we do. Are we serving others as a selfless act, or is it to fulfill a false sense of ourselves? When we can see the inner conflict at play within us, there's an opportunity to struggle against false conscience. The inner work of transformation entails observing these inner conflicts in a way that allows another force to come through. That force allows us to actually choose instead of acting from the false sense of what one should do according to others, employers, society, or relatives. This is how real conscience and discrimination is developed. The development of real conscience is a key process in developing our being. One is freed from the confines of what has been a conditioned response. It is in a present moment that one realizes how little choice there was previously. Most of our actions are reactions until we see that in action. When we do, we gain understanding of the power that false conscience has over us. This is a place of humility and the awakening of conscience. There's a very specific meaning for the word conscience in the fourth way. With this specific kind of work, we are waking up to our true self. When true conscience emerges little by little, we see what we are not. It has nothing to do with public morality or social norms. It is self-understanding. We are able to see the truth about ourselves and others. We cannot have consciousness before conscience. There are many terms to distinguish and define within our own experience. When conscience awakens within us, we see the difference between awareness and consciousness and conscience. There is a metric of inner seeing that increases with this awakening, and one is quite aware of it. The lights go on. It transcends the mind and opens the heart. True conscience is a faculty which determines our actions from a clear standpoint. We understand the source of our negative emotion. We understand commitment and duty. We embrace humility and responsibility in a way that was not possible. To distinguish the onslaught of negative emotions and sensations within us from our feelings is the awakening of conscience. Otherwise, we operate from something that holds things like guilt and anger as true. We say we have a guilty conscience. Those redundant survival mechanisms of the mind-body emotional complex mainly emerge as imagined mental anxiety and fear that produce these emotions. They have nothing to do with conscience in the terms to which I am referring. If we are to move beyond operating under false conscience, there must be a constant aim to awaken what is true conscience within us. It's the only way we even budge from the conditioning that keeps us in such negative feedback loops within ourselves. We can do things to relieve our guilt and shame. We can embark on all kinds of self-improvement. We can do good works to relieve our guilt, but false conscience is most often behind it all. Our ability to move through life with authenticity is a result of true conscience awakened in us. Our standards for life then rest in higher absolute values beyond conditioning. We choose from a deep truth within us, regardless of what others think. We learn consideration not out of the necessity to be loved, but out of respect. We reclaim our dignity as whole humans, creative, connected, and loving. From the foundation of awakened conscience, we build bridges between the seen and the unseen world. We feel on a whole new level. We experience self-acceptance on a scale that enables us to love others. We do the right thing for the right reason. That was a lot. That was like 3 articles in one, if you ask me. And so what does this mean to you? I'm glad you're here, Dawn. Glad to have you on the call. And
sorry, I'm so late. I was out before, and I think there'd been an accident. There was a huge traffic jam, so
well, great. I'm glad you
I managed to find a back route back into the town because it was jammed in all directions.
Well,
no.
Would love to have you both chime in on what this might mean to you, or how does it strike you?
There was a lot there. I sat there thinking, can't take all this in, mainly. But then I thought, just relax and listen, see what does go in.
Yeah.
And I would definitely like to listen again. So for me, it chimes with just a feeling of trying to be more genuinely myself, whether it fits in with what's expected or what's normal at all or not, which is something I'm feeling at the moment. Yeah, hard to articulate, say, but just more noticing how quite often I make a positive decision to be alone, in a way that perhaps I just did it by default because there wasn't someone else to be with. And I've just watched a fairly close friend recently take on online dating and a quite different life, and think, was that really worth it? I don't think they're happy now. And I'm just thinking it reaffirmed the positive qualities of choosing your own way, really, and not, I mean, circumstances have made me quite alone at the moment, but I can see it's not a bad thing at all. I got much more freedom of choice, like that. And I don't know, I am finding myself just quietly observing more about myself, despite often in the work you tend to think you need to be dealing with others to see things, but almost the opposite's been true because I've had a time where I'm not just pleasing other people and just finding a strength in finding my own way.
Well, I think you really articulated it perfectly in being authentic, and not at the expense of, what others expect. I think you said that right in the beginning of your statement. And even if you're alone, you have to make choices regarding right and wrong that for you, that they're still subject to absolute values and are your choices coming from conditioning or not. That's the real evaluation or the observation you have to make. I think a lot of people are more alone.
Well, and I actually said to this friend who I did see briefly yesterday, who's now considering moving in with the other person, and I said, well, for myself, I wouldn't do that. I know I need my space, and I was trying to politely say, don't do that, but too soon, and I think you'll regret it. It's also easy to make a jump for financial reasons when emotionally you might not think that's a good idea in the end.
Right. And if it's a mistake, they're going to figure that out really quickly.
Yeah, I know, but it's difficult sometimes trying to help someone without feeling like you're
right
barging in on their life. I tried to invite said person out for a walk this afternoon, thinking I could have a further conversation, but they were busy, and I went on my own. But I don't know. I'm not quite sure what has been the cause, but in the last week or so, I don't know quite how long, I've just felt more clear and more seeing things that I don't normally see, even just outside looking at things around in my house and garden, thinking, well, I haven't noticed that before. It's weird when you've lived here for 15 years. So just
you'll have to listen to the beginning of the meditation too.
Yeah,
and go for the full thing. I think that kind of exercise also helps with concentrating our awareness, and you begin to notice things. You have more energy, more sensitive energy to notice things within yourself and around you. And I don't think it's written or done very often, the atmosphere exercise, and because I think it was just something he started people on once or twice to get them prepared for the collected state. So it's not something that is one of the main exercises, so to speak, that he taught.
Who's having not been here at the beginning, I apologize, but who's the he?
Gurdjieff.
But you talk good.
Yeah.
You were talking about Gurdjieff or another teacher.
Yeah. I think there are some who have written about the atmosphere exercise as having more importance than I think it does. But it's a good exercise. Have you ever done it before? The atmosphere exercise? Okay.
Not to my awareness. I mean, I don't know, sometimes in situations I've been, things haven't been given labels, so I will have a listen and then I'll know, but
yeah,
it doesn't immediately go, oh yeah, I've done that.
How about you, Linda? You haven't done it. You're right. And what about conscience? Because you've been in the weekly group. So what?
Well, it's interesting. The first line of the reading really struck me, where he said, it's doing the right thing for the wrong reason. Because we've been studying this theme of lying in the weekly groups, and it takes many forms, and so for that to be the definition of that reading of false conscience, it just threw me a little bit, and it made me think about it in a different way, because it made me think like, well, what is the right reason, and how does one know what is the right reason? And the meditation we did, I found myself thinking a lot and kind of imagining, and then so it really was more of a practice of like, wait, what does my atmosphere feel like, and how is that different than when I'm purely in my head? So that was kind of the question. That was the question I was holding as I was then tapping and trying to tap into even sensing my atmosphere. And so the reading is, this theme and the reading is interesting because it just strikes me as they're connected, like to know one's atmosphere is to know the real reason of anything, it's like that's where the source of your reason comes from for anything. And the head is often where the voice of what other people think or what I should do or what I've been taught, like that's where that comes in,
Yeah.
So yeah, and I feel like this is a challenging notion because I feel like this is not a normal thing to teach people. Like, I feel like it's like a worldview shift to feel like to trust my own conscience before listening to others, listening to society, listening to what I was taught in schools, listening to logic, which logic is really like I feel like a cover for what other people tell you is logical.
Right.
So yeah, it takes a lot of trust and faith in oneself and what one feels is true for them. And how does one know that unless they tap into this atmosphere of themselves? And so, yeah, I find it really provocative, actually.
I mean, when you think about how much conditioning we experience in the beginning of life in order to be accepted, that notion of false personality, even of personality, comes to mind, and how we play roles, and we have to function in society with these conditioned responses to life in order to be accepted, in order to be and at the expense of our authenticity often. And so I think the whole thing of dismantling this is, I think we talked in a different week about tearing down buffers. I think, I don't remember if it was Ouspensky, which reading we had read, but there was this notion of tearing down buffers, because all the buffers are the things that keep these acquired pieces of personality from bumping into one another. So there's a lot of guilt, a lot of shame, a lot of justification, a lot of self-importance and pride and all these things. They're the things that keep this false conscience intact.
Mm-hmm.
And so the lying is a form of it. The tearing down of buffers, we're in the fourth way, conscience is really the notion of our true self, the understanding, not the notion, because it implies just the thought of it, but that we realize and see something of our true self, so we can start this inner struggle with not responding in the general way the conditioned way.
Mm-hmm.
So it's involved. I mean, the reading is a bit bumbly where it goes, it talks about all these things so much, and there's a lot there, but you can listen to the recording again, and I'll be reading this again on the weekly group on Wednesday. So it'll get read again.
Can I ask where the reading's from?
I wrote it.
Oh, you wrote it.
A long time ago. So it's some of my early writing where, it's like ad nauseum, but without being, it'll jump. But still, we were getting ourselves to this subject of false conscience, and I couldn't find it all over the books, shelves and shelves of fourth way books. And I was like, I can't find the reading. And then I start going through my own reading, and I was like, hey, there's something on false conscience. So at least it kind of touches upon, in its own bumbly way, what this is. I'll have to read it again slowly, and one day it'll get edited.
I know quite a good editor.
Yes. You are the editor of my book. Yep. There's about 2 more volumes of that, but
Yeah.
you know, there's other things going on right now than that, but I hope you can all work on it and you know, see it.
Well,
Anybody?
I think what you've just said is also an example of what you're talking about. Like, if you can't find the thing, write it yourself. I mean, you found you'd written it previously, but
Yeah.
yeah, I do think that's a lot of a recipe for success and being authentic. If you can't find the thing you want or feel, do it yourself, kind of thing. I'm
And
not
we,
expressing this very well, but anyway.
yeah. And I mean, I forgot I wrote that, and we've come to it through talking and observing all of these things within us, and then realize, oh, this is like this piece of personality of me that thinks I need to respond in this way, or we've just come to it over the weeks by studying lying. And then you know, doing the right thing for the wrong reason, meaning either to please somebody or make yourself look better or relieve guilt or something of this. You know, it's like we really do operate with this strongly. Everybody can relate to this.
I mean, one thing just from my last few days, I don't know, talk too long, but this week is like a school's holiday, so I was looking forward to sort of getting a little bit more freedom. And then on Friday night, this proofreading job that I had been contracted to do in July suddenly turned up on email with a requirement to turn it round in a few days, and I kind of almost cried to start with. And then I thought I really didn't want that now, and then I couldn't start it till Saturday because I was lacking some information. And then once I got into it, I decided, right, I just have to change my mindset here totally and enjoy what I'm doing. And it turned out to be, it's like a school music textbook, and it had lots of YouTube links. And I thought, well, I've got to check each one's accurate. I'm going to listen to them all as well, make it an enjoyable process. And I did really, I had to work till about 1 a.m. for 4 days in a row, which was nuts, but I did it, and I actually really enjoyed what I did. So yeah. I don't know if this quite ties with what you're saying, but I felt it did. I mean, I could have done the right thing, but in a quite resentful way, or I went about the right thing and just made it into my enjoyment time in a way. And in the end, I found some things by listening to this music, which was really going over the top for the job. But I did find in one particular thing, it was like music for a computer game, and it said it's based on music by Grieg, and I listened to it and thought, I think that's the Blue Danube. Don't think that's by Grieg. So I mean, I gave myself a big tick because yes, I found some things that they got wrong, which if I hadn't indulged in actually listening to the stuff, I wouldn't have found it for them. So I mean, there's no way I'm going to be paid for the detail it went into, but you know, I just felt I changed my attitude, and actually, and I didn't really think about, I still haven't done the invoice because I haven't even figured out what it's going to be yet, but yeah, I just went into the thing for its own sake and to make it an enjoyable thing for myself.
I think this does apply. I mean, as long as you don't have this resentment or I mean, you did the research that's thorough, and one would expect you to, you know, hope that you could do a thorough job, and you did it because
to
enjoy that.
Doing the job I'd been contracted to do was the right thing to do, but I could have done it quite a wrong way, is what I was thinking.
Yes. Yeah.
I turned it around, and I've got energy from that. Actually, now I have 2 actual days without work.
Yeah. And you did actually find something too. So, I mean, you served a greater purpose too. So as long, you know it's right from your conscience when you don't feel, when you're not dealing with some kind of harboring some kind of bad feelings. You've moved from conscience. You've acted from conscience. Yeah,
So feelings are the signposts.
yeah. There's
Sorry, Linda, what did you I didn't quite catch what you said.
That feelings are kind
The
of the
feel-
guideposts.
Sorry, maybe I didn't listen.
yeah, feelings, not reactions. I mean, not, or I mean, you know, signposts of like false emotion, negativity, all of that. Those are the signposts that you're operating from false conscience.
Mhm.
Lying, false conscience.
And genuine feelings are also a
Yes,
guidepost or signpost. Yeah.
yes, yes. Of true conscience. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. So it very much has to do with the feeling center,
Mm-hmm.
being free. Yes. Wow. That's great. Good. That was a good example of it. So I hope people work with this. Anything else, Linda? Do you have something? Because you've been working on it in the weekly group.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think this is a really prescient theme for us. And it's all the time. It's like it's coming up all the time, you know? So it takes kind of a certain vigilance or paying attention, you know, to catch oneself in it, just to see what's going on. And there's like this element of trust, I feel like that is really central to this doing the right thing for the right reason. There's like a having like the trust is like the buffer between, you know, what I should do versus what I feel I should do. It's like a different feeling, you know?
Yeah, we've
That's
been
just,
taught to not trust ourselves.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And to trust that one is safe enough to be honest,
Yes.
kind of.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yes. I mean, that is what we're pushing against here. And then it builds something stronger, a stronger connection when you actually can be honest and take the risk. You know, it feels like a risk. Oh, I'm not going to be loved if I'm honest. Because the people in the weekly group have been talking about lying by omission. Like, I couldn't possibly say this because it's going to upset this other person so much. It's just easier for me to remain silent.
Mhm.
And yet then they censure themselves. They're filtering themselves. They're not fully authentic. So another example, yes, taking the risk, pushing against that and taking the risk. And then it creates a better connection because then we're honest. I mean, then ironically,
Mm.
instead of all this pretense and all this. Yeah.
I mean, it relates a little bit to what I was saying about this friend at the beginning, but for myself, I mean, I think I have to be careful what I say because I don't want to just be appearing to criticize someone and their path is, well, is different from mine. But it made me look at my own path more and think, yeah, you know, I'm really these days happy to be here alone. If something else happens to change that, I might adapt, I might not. But I think in the past I've always seen that as a second best thing a lot of the time.
Mm.
Beginning to I was talking to a teenage pupil this week and I just said there are just so many things I want to do in a day anyway. I don't really feel the need for another to share it with all the time. And it's true. I mean, if they were there, that could be great. But if they're not, it's also fine.
Yeah.
And I really relish increasingly my freedom to just, especially with all the online offers, just to delve in and do all sorts of mad things that if I had to consider someone else wouldn't in any way be possible. So just staying up and doing things in the USA in the middle of the night and things like
Yeah.
that. But
Yeah.
I also have to watch myself because I have a slight inclination to be too greedy. And I could see, yes, that I maybe some point need to say, you can't do everything you want to do.
Right. Exactly. Connection with people is good too. You forget how valuable it is. And alone time is also valuable. So, you know, you have to use your conscience to judge what's right. This is the whole thing, and not everything is the right for everybody. This is the whole thing. So I hope I think it's so rich. This theme has been just fantastic for people to see within and question. Hope we're leaving here today with more questions and answers. As I said last week, it's better to keep questioning. Wait, is this who I truly am? Is this what I truly mean? At the risk, of being authentic, at the risk of what we think is perceived risk, of losing someone or not being accepted. So thank you all for being here. And we'll see you next month.
Mm-hmm.
Bye, Molly. Bye, Dawn.
Thank you.